It's 1961. 1,400 Cuban exiles, armed to the teeth and secretly backed by the CIA, storm a beach barely 90 miles from Florida. They're convinced they'll ignite a nationwide revolt, sweeping Fidel Castro from power within days. Instead, they're pinned down by 20,000 Cuban troops, run out of ammo by day 2, and forced to surrender. The kicker? The United States, the superpower of superpowers, watched it all implode in real time. So, how did the Bay of Pigs invasion go so spectacularly wrong? Stick around. The answer is a chain reaction of miscalculations that didn't just reshape the Cold War, but brought the world terrifyingly close to nuclear annihilation. By 1960, Washington was gripped by its biggest nightmare, a communist Caribbean. Just a year earlier, Fidel Castro, once oddly enough greeted in the U.S. as a revolutionary hero, had firmly planted Cuba in the Soviet camp. He'd nationalized American businesses, seized assets, and most alarmingly, inked secret arms deals with Moscow. The U.S. couldn't stand the thought of a Soviet-aligned state just a stone's throw from its shores, a dangerous precedent for the rest of Latin America. President Eisenhower, nearing the end of his term, ordered the CIA to cook up something dramatic. The goal seemed simple enough: train anti-Castro exiles, land them in Cuba, trigger a popular uprising, and install a friendly government before the 1961 sugar harvest. Spoiler alert, absolutely none of that actually happened. The original blueprint was a direct copy of the CIA's playbook from 1954, when they orchestrated a coup in Guatemala. A quick strike, a blast of radio propaganda, and locals switching sides en masse. What could go wrong? The CIA picked Nicaragua's Puerto Cabezas as a training hub, christened the Exile Brigade 2506, and secured a fleet of World War II-era B-26 bombers for air cover. On paper, 1,400 motivated, well-supplied fighters, paired with the element of surprise, should have guaranteed victory. But paper, as they say, burns fast and hot in a real fire. The plan was built on a dangerously flawed assumption that the Cuban people would rise up to greet their liberators. Enter John F. Kennedy, barely 2 months into his presidency, inheriting this ticking time bomb. He wanted plausible deniability, meaning no obvious American fingerprints on the operation. This seemingly reasonable desire had devastating consequences. He drastically slashed the planned airstrikes from full cover, overwhelming bombardments to mere token sorties. Then he moved the landing site from the port city of Trinidad, a strategic location where rebels could melt into the Escambray Mountains, to the remote, swamp-ringed Bay of Pigs. Translation: no escape route, no natural cover, no easy reinforcements, and no port facilities for heavy equipment. The CIA, caught between a rock and a hard place, reluctantly rewrote the operational plan, secretly assuming the young president would change his mind once the bullets started flying. He didn't. While Washington planned, Havana was already 2 steps ahead. Cuban agents had successfully infiltrated the exile ranks in Miami, gathering detailed information. Castro's intelligence knew the day, the beach code name, even the breakfast menu. He calmly parked artillery on the surrounding bluffs and buried T-34 tanks hull down in the sand, ready for the ambush. Meanwhile, CIA analysts were assuring the White House that a staggering 80% of Cubans despised Fidel and would defect at the first rifle crack. The reality check? Only a handful of confused farmers showed up at the beachhead, mostly to try and sell coffee. The CIA's overconfidence and poor coordination tragically underestimated Castro's forces and the genuine lack of popular uprising. April 17, 1961, 1:15 a.m. The invasion began. Paratroopers were supposed to drop inland to block the only road leading to the beach. Instead, many landed in mangrove swamps, spending 3 grueling hours cutting themselves free. The main force hit Playa Girón at dawn, but the supply ships, loaded with crucial ammo, fuel, and even canned beans, ran aground on coral heads that were incorrectly mapped. To make matters worse, 2 freighters were spotted by Cuban patrol boats. One was sunk, the other fled to international waters, taking most of the brigade's heavy guns with it. By breakfast, Castro's jets, surplus Sea Furies piloted by veteran Cuban airmen, sank 2 more cargo vessels. Suddenly, the exiles had no ammo, no working radios, and no food. Still, they dug in, waiting desperately for the promised air cover that would never come. Kennedy, haunted by the specter of overt U.S. involvement and fearing Soviet retaliation in Berlin, made the agonizing decision to cancel the second wave of B-26 strikes. This was the death blow. With no air superiority, the brigade's small Sherman tanks became stationary pillboxes, easy targets. Cuban pilots, flying captured American planes now painted with exile markings, strafed the beachhead at will. A cruel psychological blow. Morale plummeted. Soldiers on the ground started counting their bullets one by one, knowing their fate was sealed. By day 3, the situation was hopeless. 20,000 Cuban troops, well-equipped and well-led, encircled the beachhead. Exile snipers held out in coral caves, fighting until their clips clicked empty. A final desperate radio plea, "Send us boats or we die!" reached Washington. The Navy dispatch sat idle. JFK, resolute in his decision to avoid direct American military intervention, refused to commit U.S. forces. On April 19th, the last 1,180 survivors raised white T-shirts in surrender. Total U.S.-backed casualties: 114 dead, the rest prisoners. Castro, seizing the propaganda victory, paraded them on Havana television, and the entire world watched a superpower stumble and humiliate itself. The fiasco didn't just embarrass the U.S., it turbocharged Castro's legitimacy and solidified his grip on power. He declared the Cuban Revolution socialist and swiftly signed deeper, more comprehensive pacts with Moscow. Exactly 1 year later, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, partly to prevent another invasion and partly to balance U.S. Jupiter missiles in Turkey, shipped nuclear missiles to the island. Washington woke up to the terrifying reality of Soviet medium-range rockets just 15 minutes from Miami. This led directly to October 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis, humanity's closest brush with nuclear war. All roads, it turned out, led back to that mangled beach. The failure of the Bay of Pigs invasion truly intensified Cold War tensions, setting the stage for a global standoff. So, why did the Bay of Pigs fail? Pick your poison. Political caution that choked off vital air support? Intelligence that tragically mistook wishful thinking for hard facts? A landing site that doubled as an inescapable trap? And a dictator who knew the playbook before it was even printed? Add them all together and you get more than just a military embarrassment. You get the moment Cuba turned definitively red, the Cold War turned dangerously hotter, and the world held its breath, looking towards Havana. History teaches us that paper plans burn, but bad assumptions, they explode. If you like this story, please hit like and subscribe to our channel. This means a lot to us and is helping us to bring more stories like this in Lemme Explain 101 style.